welcome to this edition of Winchester Essentials. My name is Alan McDonald, and it's my pleasure to be hosting this next half hour, a discussion of a debt override vote in the town of Winchester coming up on December 10th, and a discussion of that vote with Mr. Tom Howley and Mr. John Natale, both active town meeting members who have been part of the discussion. The vote on December 10th is whether or not to allow a debt override, Proposition 2.5 debt override, of nearly $130 million to rebuild the Winchester High School, and to accept, as part of that expenditure, some $45 million from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Mr. Tom Howley, former chairman of the Town of Winchester Planning Board and Town of Winchester Board of Selectmen, and longtime town meeting member, and Mr. John Natale, a longtime veteran town meeting member, very active in these discussions. And we're going to discuss tonight with an opening from both gentlemen, and then I'll provide some questions, and we'll have some 90 seconds of answers for each, much as we can keep to that, in closing statements, and you'll hear both sides of the Proposition 2.5 debt override. Let me begin with allowing opening statements, and Mr. Tom Howley. Tom, if you would open.
Great. Thank you, Alan. I appreciate it. First of all, I just want to say I want to really thank WinCam for making this possible. And John and I have had a chance to talk about this issue a little bit at other occasions, and I'm very appreciative of the fact that both of us can do this. And hopefully contribute to people making an informed decision on December 10th. Because the reason I'm involved in this is that I think it's probably this question, whether we rebuild our high school or not, is perhaps the most important question the town has faced certainly in decades. And I happen to come to it and come as an advocate for voting yes on December 10th, because I think it's a very smart investment for our community to make, not only for our children, but for our property values, which will be affected significantly by whatever decision we make, and really our community. I happen to believe that a strong school system is absolutely essential in order to have a strong community, and that the high school, in fact, is the anchor of that school system. I also believe that there are significant deficiencies in the high school. And so serious, in fact, that they will jeopardize the quality of our educational system, and they will shape over time the decisions that people make about whether to come to Winchester or not. The plan that is on the table is something which will address the three major objectives that I think we have to face. One is the significant building deficiencies. The other is to address enrollment growth. We're going to have another couple hundred students come into the building in the next few years. And then thirdly, and I think very importantly, to provide classrooms that will support a 21st century education. So by voting yes, we capture the $44.5 million in state aid that's available to us. And in effect, we get a brand new high school with the state paying for a third of the cost. And if we don't, the problems will not go away. We're going to have to address them anyway, and it simply won't be efficient. So I think it's a great opportunity for us.
Great, thank you. Mr. John Natale.
Yes, like Tom, I wish to thank WinCam for the opportunity to represent some of the no positions on this issue. And we believe there are many, many reasons why no voters will be voting no, and among them principally are the huge tax increase of upwards around, on the average, $1,200 a year for 20 years. The absence, in our opinion, of convincing educational reasons to take this building down, and the absence of a physical problem that cannot be remedied with far less money. But in my opinion, probably the number one, if I may say, overriding reason for people to vote no is the rather bizarre Winchester culture of demolishing perfectly functional schools. Ambrose, how old was that? 45 years old. Winston-Owen was only 49 years old, and now comes to high school at 41 years old, and then replacing them with shiny new schools. This simply doesn't happen in our own lives, with our own homes, with our own churches, and it never happens in private schools, where all the spending is with one's own money, where this money must be spent wisely, and there is no state aid. And I'd like to cite three examples. Right here in town, we have St. Mary's. St. Mary's School was built in 1910 that's 105 years old. It is in excellent condition, and nobody over there is talking about knocking it down. It's not about the building, it's about the education. Boston Latin School, one of the great high schools in the country, is over 150 years old. It's an exam school where parents die to get their children in. And Tufts, where the math and science building was old 60 years ago when I was there. It is still the math and science building. Same for the chemistry building. It is still the chemistry building, old then and older now. The tuition at Tufts, by the way, is $60,000 per year. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And really, to follow up with points that you both have made in recognizing the advances in the Winchester High School, Winchester schools generally, but we have in the last 75 years or so gone from Waterley to what's now Lincoln to what's now McCall to what's now the current high school. And we did that in the meeting of advancements in programs for education and population growth. And I'm curious about whether or not you gentlemen feel that we have had advances in educational needs that bring about the need for this particular project. I'm going to ask Tom to speak to it first.
Sure. And if I could, just a couple comments on some of John's facts. There's a tax calculator which is available online. You can go to WinchesterHSproject.com. And it's been posted, it's the public information website. And the tax impact is approximately $800 a year on an average assessed value of $750. So I want to just kind of every so often kind of comment on a few things. But to your question, I happen to think that we know that 3/4 of the classrooms in the high school do not meet state standards for size. We know that our science labs are woefully inadequate, that the technology is certainly in no way appropriate either in terms of space or equipment or software for a 21st century education. And that essentially the building that was built in 1971 is not only failing in terms of its the building envelope and the mechanical systems, but it does not have adequate classroom space for truly a modern 21st century education. And we need to address it to keep our school system competitive.
John, to you on if you feel there are educational needs that have advanced that require this particular project, or you feel it's fair to say that current facilities and programs are adequate.
Well, both. I think they're adequate. And the theme that Tom just defended, that that somehow the present classrooms do not meet 21st century standards, seems to me to be it's a sort of a flat earth position. How can it be that if the Winchester programs are so inadequate, so poor, so outdated, that Winchester High School could receive a National Blue Ribbon Award, only one of 53 schools in the country, and the only one in the state, and we're surrounded by communities which everyone acknowledges have a terrific school systems, Belmont, Lexington, Wenham, so it just doesn't mesh with reality that we could be doing so well in these national awards, and yet locally there's the allegation that the schools are inadequate.
Well, it is true that the stated goals for the project from the school committee and the school department are threefold: to meet the current standards for educational programming, but also to provide adequate space for a growth of student population that by 2017 at the high school level is expected to be some 1,370 students, 200 plus more than we have right now. And thirdly, the updating of the facilities to meet current building codes and ADA codes, those kinds of things. So I guess the next question would be whether or not there's agreement with the goals that are stated, or is there room for something else that might need to be done that's not stated in those goals? I would ask you first, John.
A great question.
Okay, thank you.
I happen to have here a letter that was sent by the MSBA to the superintendent in April of this year. This was after the MSBA voted to approve the project. And they say in part here that the existing Winchester High School, right now under roof, can accommodate not merely the students that are there, the 1250, but also the anticipated growth of 1370 you said. So, and not only can it accommodate, it has 45,000 square feet in excess of what it needs to meet state standards for the larger population. So why is it that we're building 10 outside classrooms at all? Outside classrooms, you have to build foundations, you have to do some excavation, you need steel work, all those things are expensive. It seems that we have the space inside, just move the walls around, easier said than done for sure, but we have adequate space there now, it's just not being used properly.
So Tom, to you, it would be the same thing. The stated goals are to meet current standards for educational program, providing adequate space for a significant increase in student population, and updating to meet building codes.
Yeah. Well, the state approved the project, of course, in October, not earlier. And it is true that by state standards, and they have indicated this, there's some 3/4 of the spaces for teaching are inadequate. They're improperly sized. So this plan, which will create 10 additional classrooms, will address that problem. It will also allow us to update our science labs from the condition they were in 1970, and which have really deteriorated since then, because in order to address the enrollment growth that has taken place over the years, spaces have been subdivided. And so the space is simply no longer efficient. So by voting on this project affirmatively, what will happen is that the space will be right-sized. It will be made to be flexible space so that it can be truly support the kind of flexible learning that's now taking place. And it'll address deficiencies, which in fact the state found to be serious. So serious that in fact they approved this project and actually encouraged us to apply for additional funding.
Thank you. And I would ask, and you start on this next one, Tom, as a follow-up, really, if we did not do some of the basic work that is designed by the architect and the mechanics in the basement coming up off of floodplain, air conditioning and heating and lighting and wiring, some very basic things in the building itself. If the project itself is too big, is there a way that either of you two gentlemen would see cutting it down to a different size? Yeah. And I'd ask if you could start
Sure.
that, Tom.
So I guess I start from the point of view that I disagree with John. I think anybody that goes through the building and looks at it, anybody who's had children who are there now, the vast majority of people seeing that facility will say this is in very serious shape. The town, from my point of view, has not been spending money efficiently over the last several years because we've been addressing these things piecemeal. So if you accept the fact that the building is failing, and that those problems will not go away and will need to be addressed, the estimates that have been put forward, which I think are very credible, indicate that in order to address the building deficiencies, the envelope problems, the code problems and the like, replacement mechanical systems, you trigger a bunch of codes, which then very quickly gets you to the $62 to $74 million range. And once you're at that point, you've addressed these some of the building deficiencies, but we have not addressed the enrollment needs, which are the second objective we have, and we haven't done what we've talked about earlier, which is really to provide modern, new 21st century classrooms. So to my way of thinking, $60 to $72 million to only achieve one portion of our three objectives just really doesn't make sense. It's not a good investment of taxpayer dollars.
John, do you think, have you had thoughts about what we might do for a lesser sized project?
You know, this reminds me, Tom's answer reminds me of a discussion he and I had a month or so ago, in which it was either Tom or the woman who
somebody to remain nameless.
Someone who was nameless, that said that if we build this school, if we build this high school, we won't have to build another high school for 40 years. That was really sad. I was very sad to hear that we already, whoever said that, anticipate a 40-year life for this building. which is discouraging. We'll be just finishing, if we have, I don't know how long the mortgage is going to be. It's going to be 20 years, 25 years, 30
Probably
years?
25.
Okay, so we'll be just paying that off, and then we're getting, looking at another 25-year mortgage for another school because mold or it doesn't meet the current standards then. It just doesn't make sense. How do these older schools, very old schools that I cited earlier, be still functioning supremely well? So
Well,
there's a mismatch here in the understanding of what the needs are and what the wants are.
Let me ask you, and you'll be answering first here, John. I'll ask the same question for both, of course. But whether or not you felt that the process was fair in having the review. It was a 3-year review where the state came in and had a tour of the high school, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and they're in business to help cities and towns with building new schools to meet new demands in education programming. But they took a look, and that their responsibility is to see that each and every city and town is meeting educational needs, fiscally responsible construction of the schools, and to make sure it's the right size for the school population. So they look at it for 3 years, and they make a decision that they want to help Winchester, and the Winchester Education Facilities Planning and Building Committee school committee looks, and comes back to town meeting. So is there something in the process that resulted in a request for the town to fund this project that would be different?
Well, there's something in the process that troubles me. A couple of things. 2 or 3 years ago at town meeting, we appropriated $1.2 million so that the feasibility study committee could look into this. I thought then it was a mistake to call it the feasibility study committee because we knew they were going to find it to be feasible. That's where they were headed. And it was pretty much the same leadership on that committee that found that it was feasible to demolish the VO school. That was a foregone conclusion. Of course, now the name has been changed to the EFPBC, Educational Facilities Planning and Building Committee. I think it should be changed further to Educational Facilities Permanent Planning Building Committee, because this is going to be an ongoing process. If this school is built, 40 years, we're going to have the same committee looking for another school. And the MSB, I have difficulty with this.
MSBA.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The MSBA, that's the Massachusetts School Building.
Authority.
That's what they're in business of, to build schools. So it's not that they don't want to build schools. They want to find customers to spend their money.
The situation is that they did take 3 years. They had 200 plus applications this year. Oh, I have to go to Mr. Tom Howley for that. I will. I was going to ask another question, but I won't. Tom.
Yeah, so the MSBA progress is very rigorous, in fact. And although I was not directly involved in it, I was on the Board of Selectmen at the time, and I have to say I took a lot of comfort in the fact that they pushed us as hard as they did. So I think that they looked at 12 different locations. They looked at new building options. They looked at renovation options. The renovation option, in fact, is the quickest to be completed. It is the fastest to be made available to students. It is the cheapest. It's cheaper than building a new school. So I was very satisfied with the rigor of the process, and I think it's worth noting that at town meeting, that the Finance Committee, who is no pushover on these things and often push back, they voted unanimously, one abstention, but they voted unanimously that this was a project as designed that was going to meet all 3 objectives: the building deficiencies, the enrollment problems, the overcrowding, as well as the school curriculum classroom design issues, and that it would do, if I could quote, in a fiscally prudent manner. So I want to keep coming back to the fact that whatever we feel about this, however inconvenient we may find it to be, the school is in tough shape. We have a plan that in fact takes advantage of $45 million of state funding, pays for a third of the cost of a brand new high school essentially. And it would be a shame, I think, if we miss this opportunity.
May I make a comment?
I'll tell you what, why don't we lead this into the next question, because I'll ask a question on that, John, and see if that fits in. But the architect, who was the major architect in this, said this is a critical point in the history of this building, 40 years in, and that the basic repairs that would have to be done without regard to the advancement of the programs themselves and laboratories and those kinds of things would be, as you just heard, some $60 to $70 million, perhaps even a little ahead of $70 million. So the question would be whether or not you would find that a more reasonable project, or if you feel that's a fair estimate of what might be done as far as you know from the town discussion.
You know, I'm positively 100% for maintenance, all ongoing continual maintenance. These old schools that I keep referring to would never get to be old had they not been maintained from the get-go. That's a discussion I hope we get into in a minute. But me in my own home, I have to triage, so to speak, things that need to be done. Do I do the fence this year? Do I do all the fence or part the fence? I need a new car. I'm going to buy a used car. Is it going to be 4 years old or 8 or 10 years old? You know, what about the driveway and the house and the roof? So I in my own life, and probably everybody else in their own lives with different things going on, college tuition, and you know, have to keep all the balls in the air. You really cannot neglect one very long, or you're going to pay a higher price. But it seems to me in the case of the school, and I don't deny there are problems there, they should have been attended to. And if the school is voted down, I hope that we do begin to attend to them and don't allow them to deteriorate further.
Okay, and Tom, then to you on that same idea, the question would be to what you've already addressed, but a follow-up on the wisdom of getting enough money to do the basics and not worry about the advanced programming right now.
So I differ with John on the question of whether the maintenance has been poor. I don't think it has been. In fact, when the state came through and reviewed our plan, they increased our reimbursement from 33% to over 40%, and part of that 8-point difference, I believe it was that our maintenance, they don't want people to let their buildings go downhill and then come into the state and ask for money. In fact, what they do is they penalize you if, in fact, they don't think you have the right maintenance procedures in place. They awarded us points because of it. So they believe our maintenance procedures are very strong. And what I would say is that, like it or not, the roof is failing, the windows are failing, the walls were improperly designed, the brick is right against the masonry, so there's airflow and water flow that comes through the building. And when this project is done, all of those problems are going to be corrected. So I reject the idea about the maintenance. I do think that we should not be spending money piecemeal to address these things, that by delay, by doing them piecemeal, in the end, I believe, whether it's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from now, we will have spent very close to the same amount of money, but we will not have a complete project. And it'll turn out, for the things that we share, John, in terms of really caring about how the town is run, how the stewardship of the town, fiscal management, it will turn out to be a bad decision. It'll cost us more money.
Did you say that the reimbursement rate is 40%?
It's a little over 40%. It's a third of the project. It's a complicated formula. But the way in which they boosted us from the original 34%, they added another 8 points onto it for energy efficiency and also for maintenance. And the fact that we're rebuilding on site.
Their participation their maximum participation is capped off at $44.5 million, right? Okay, and we're going to pay 85.5. That's right. Well, the ratio of 44.5 divided by 129.9 is 32%.
No, I understand that. But in fact, it's a complicated formula that they use. But if you take out certain space, which is not reimbursable, and other things, from their standards, it turns out to be over 40% by their formula. By our costs, there's no question about it. It's going to be $44.5 million from the state, $88.4 million from the town.
So those are the numbers. I appreciate the back and forth, and what I'm going to ask you both to do, if you would, we're near the end of our half hour, if you both would have up to 2 minutes apiece for closing. And in the closing, it really would be important, I think, for the voters who are going to vote yes or no in the debt override to understand whether or not the repairs to the high school for a 40-year-old building could be done without an override, or whether any amount of an override might be reasonable, and really what the voters should take from the town meeting discussion that voted to go, by a large margin, voted to go to town voters to ask for the debt override. And let me begin with the opportunity for Mr. Howley to do the closing.
Thank you. Yeah, so thank you again for doing this. I actually do wish we had more time because we have a lot to say. But I would say, again, this is a very smart investment for the town to be making. The problems with the high school are real, not only in terms of the physical condition of the building, but also in terms of not being able to support a competitive high school curriculum any longer. I think for us to allow this to continue would be extremely detrimental to the town and to the strength of our community, the strength of our property values, not to mention the education that our children receive. To do these things piecemeal, assuming that we cannot just simply ignore these physical problems with the building, it will cost us between 60 to 74 million dollars. There's no way of getting around that. So if we are going to do that, it'll be an inefficient way to end up with 1/3 of the outcomes that we actually need as a community. So I just think it would be a shame to pass up the state reimbursing 1/3 of the project costs, right? Reimbursing 1/3 of the project costs and allowing us to get essentially a brand new high school, one that is based on a plan that has been rigorously studied over the last 3 years. So I think if we don't do it, we're going to end up having to go back to the voters for overrides anyway, and we will be doing so based on individual projects that really will not serve the long-term needs of the community. So I'm hoping people really will take the time to learn about this. Go to winchesterhsproject.com. There's a wealth of information there, and vote yes when we get to December 10th.
Thank you. And Mr. Natale, your closing.
I have a pre-closing remark to make. As to my allegation that maintenance has been deferred, I use mold as an example. When did mold first appear? Did it appear last Friday? Did it appear a year ago, 10 years ago? In my one bathroom at home, mold sometimes appears in this poorly ventilated space. I attack it immediately with bleach. It's gone. We wouldn't have mold if it had been, attacked and treated. And this is now the #1 stop on the tour, and people are taking pictures of it. Get rid of the mold. It's easy to do. And secondly, I'd like to thank you and WinCam for giving at least the no side an opportunity, because the only way we get out the word is by delivering this flyer by hand to every doorstep in town. This is a quicker way. But as to a closing statement, I will paraphrase one of the Earside's most popular slogans: right plan, right time, right cost. We say, wrong plan, wrong time, wrong cost. As for the wrong plan, 45 years ago, we made the great engineering blunder of building a high school in a floodplain. We hope we do not repeat that mistake, that we do not send $130 million good dollars into the same swamp. We hope we do not build an academic Versailles in a flood zone. As for the wrong time, the national economy is positively in the tank and worsening. It's a very worrisome time for many families. We have high unemployment, high anxiety about keeping one job, etc. And we have our own urgent needs like paying the mortgage and making car payments. All of these, to many of us, are much more important than renovating a $130 million high school. And it's the wrong cost. Many of us simply cannot afford the enormous tax increase that comes with this override. That's worth repeating. We cannot afford it. We are not saying don't maintain the building and don't fix the problems. We are saying the opposite. We are saying come back with a plan that ordinary folks can afford. Vote no on December the 10th to this $130 million override.
Thank you, Mr. John Natale. Mr. Tom Howley.
Thank you.
Voters of Winchester, please vote December 10th on the question of the override for the rebuilding of Winchester High School. This is Alan McDonald. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you soon.